FLM, wide open thinking, world-class work, and far-reaching results. Now with locations in Minneapolis, Columbus, Indianapolis, and Washington, D.C. A strategic marketing and communications company dedicated to serving clients who specialize in the business of agriculture and the life of rural communities.
Congressman Trent Kelly from Mississippi's 1st District, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
For starters, can you tell us a little bit about your district and the kinds of agriculture we might find in it?
Wow. My district's a rural district in Mississippi, although we do get some of the Memphis suburbs, but even that area, there's still a whole lot of farming in that area. So my district's North Mississippi. It goes all the way to the Mississippi River and all the way across the top, mostly northeast, but some northwest. Just a great agriculture and industrial business base there in North Mississippi.
Mm-hmm. Now, you joined the rest of your freshman class here, wrapping up your first term here on Capitol Hill, but you joined them a little bit late.
Yeah, I was about 6 months late. I ran in a special election to replace our congressman who had passed away, Alan Nunley, and so early on in the campaign, it was funny because one of the things that I really wanted to come up here to do was to represent our farmers and to represent our agricultural interests in Mississippi. And of course, a lot of people laugh. They say, you know, everybody says that, but they get up there and they don't do that. But it was very important to me to get on ag.
Mm-hmm. What was the learning curve like adjusting to, starting Congress 6 months later than a lot of your peers?
You know, I didn't really notice, and everything in life is about the people that you have around me. And I kept a large majority of Congressman Nunley's staff, all that wanted to stay, including Tara and Elizabeth and Ted, the chief of staff, and they had been on Agri-Pulse. So they really had a great understanding of the agricultural process and the legislative process. I understand how to make decisions. They understood how to get me the right information. So it really wasn't much of a transition because of the great staff I had.
Mm-hmm. Now, your background prior to being a member of Congress, a lot of military and legal experience in there. Practiced law, was a member of the National Guard. How does that help you in your decision-making process here in Congress?
Yeah, I was a prosecutor. I was a district attorney, so that's all about managing a staff, much similar to the size of a congressional staff, my DA staff, different visions, but it's still doing that. Same thing in the military. It's all about managing staffs and managing personnel, and I'd been in leadership positions, battalion command, brigade command. I had done combat tours, and when it's all said and done, it all comes down to having a great staff, being able to tell them what you want and articulate that, and them to understand your vision, and then them to give you the information to help you make decisions. And our staff is, I know I go on and on about my staff, but they are just great at giving me what I need in the format that I needed to make good, sound decisions for Mississippi.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk a little bit about Mississippi here. You're on the Small Business and Agriculture Committees. How are those two committees relevant and important to your district?
Well, I mean, Mississippi agriculture, we are an agricultural state, and I think probably close to 50% of everything that we do in Mississippi is tied to agriculture in some way. Still have a lot of farmers. So that's very important to me. And the other, probably close to 40% of those, the other 40% is probably small businesses. So those are just really great committees for me to be a voice for the people that I represent in the district. And it also gives us good things to talk about, and it gives them me on committees that has influence on the things that matter the most in Mississippi.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about House Ag. You mentioned earlier that serving on that committee was a campaign priority of yours. But when it comes to actual policies and actual discussions that you were planning to have on the committee, what were your priorities in this previous 114th Congress, and what will your priorities be in the 115th?
Well, I first of all have to say that our chairman, Mike Conaway, he gets it. He's just one of those guys. He's got the it factor. He understands what's going on in the agriculture community. So a lot of times it's following his leads. But whether we're talking about crop insurance and the need for it, and to make sure that it stays privatized and doesn't get into the wrong hand, making sure that the commodities and things that we deal with, that we have a fair agricultural trading field, and so that our commodities, that they aren't being dumped on by other countries. So there's just a ton of things that we have to do. Of course, this last time, catfish, very, very important to us, and then cotton, cottonseed oil, making sure we get that program without reopening the Farm Bill, to make sure that we have a way to take care of. Because once we lose that cotton infrastructure in places like Mississippi and Texas and Arkansas, you can't just build back cotton infrastructure, so you have to make sure you keep it in place.
It's often said that the agriculture committees in both chambers are less partisan and more regional. being a Southern member of that committee, do you see that in the committee work?
You know, when we were talking about catfish, I kind of got that question on regional. First of all, we are very bipartisan, and we have good people on both sides of the aisle that understand. They represent our farmers and not necessarily any partisan politics in that. They're representing the people in our district. The second part of that is, although all products are grown regionally, if you think about it, they're really not. They're regionally grown, but they're globally used. So whether you're talking about catfish, they're used all across the United States and all across the world. Or when you're talking about cotton, there's only certain states that grow that, but they're used worldwide. Same thing with corn, you know, in the Midwest. So they're regionally grown, but they're globally used.
Mm-hmm. Do you hope to stay on both of the committees you currently serve?
You know, I'm on ag. I love small business, but I'm also working real hard to get on armed services because I tell people all the time, and that was one of the things when I ran. I said, you know, they talk about the one percenters, the rich one percenters and all that. Well, I represent, or the people that I want to represent, are two sets of one percenters, and that's farmers and soldiers. And that's the one percenters that I want to represent. So armed services and ag would be a perfect world for me.
Now that we have a little bit of a better idea of what the next couple of years is going to look like post-election, what are some of the goals that you have from a broader congressional perspective, not just a House Ag Committee, but what are some of the goals and the things that you'd like to see from a Republican Congress, a Republican Senate, and a Republican administration?
Yeah. Well, you know, first of all, I think we have to listen to what the president-elect wants to do. I think that's important. He was elected by the people, and if you look at the counties that he won, it's like 90% of the counties voted for Trump. So I think we need to listen to what he's saying because he obviously tapped into something. Second of all, defense is so important to me, and also the ability to provide for ourselves. So, I mean, really, armed services and ag are the things that I think will keep and maintain this is the greatest nation in the world, where we can provide all the crops and all the food sources that we need while taking care of water. But on military, to make sure our readiness is increased, because right now we have taken our military down to a level that's unsustainable in order to perform the missions that we need. So we've got to look at retraining, re-equipping, making sure that we have the right personnel strengths, and get away from sequestration. That was really important. And then most of all, regulations. You know, whether you're talking about WOTUS or whether you're talking about the NLRB or the CFPB, all that alphabet soup, we have to do away with these regulations which unfairly hamper the folks that they're trying to help. And I don't think it's intentional, but it doesn't matter whether it's intentional or not. It is killing the small business people in this world with the amount of regulations they have to comply with.
Mm-hmm. Now that you're kind of wrapping up your first term here, you've recently been reelected to a second, but as you wrap up your first term, what has most surprised you about being a member of Congress?
You know, it's the other members. Whether you're talking about my Bible studies that I regularly attend up here twice a week when I'm up here, or whether you're talking about the relationships, I thought most people up here would be Washington insiders because you watch the national media and that's what it appears, that everybody's insiders, and they're not. They're regular people just like you and I, and if you didn't know they were a congressman and you met them on the street, they're guys and girls you like and you would like to, you know, hang out with, and you have so much in common. And I think we lose that sometimes with the national media trying to portray us as something else, but they're just regular, common people. They're not Washington insiders, so to speak.
And I'll wrap up with this one. If I could give you the power to kind of unilaterally change any one thing about the halls of Congress, be it a rule, be it the makeup, what have you, what one thing would you most like to change about Congress?
What I would like to change is I don't like regulatory agencies making law. And I don't think they should make any laws. And we've had things like the REINS Act, which say if it's over, $100 million. I don't think any regulatory agency should make any law that or any rule that has the effect of law without congressional approval. There's a reason that we have 3 branches of government, and so I would not do away with the 4th branch of government, but they would be answerable to the House of Representatives and the People's House, as opposed to making rules that they don't answer to anybody on.
Congressman Trent Kelly from Mississippi's 1st District, thanks for joining us.
Thanks.